computer. But yeah, as I was saying, I was decided to buy skis, even though I haven't skied in 20 years. I'm gonna embrace the Minnesotan in me now, and hopefully find a babysitter for the younger two, and then me, my husband, and the 8-year-old and 5-year-old will hopefully hit the slopes,
Awesome.
because we're like 10 minutes from Afton Alps.
Oh, perfect. So downhill versus cross country skis.
Downhill, yeah.
Yeah, I'm hoping that our kids have never skied before, and Greg and I maybe go once or twice a year. So I'm hoping that we can get the kids into it this year too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my 5-year-old was just like, he took lessons last winter, and he's like kind of like me, like adrenaline junkie. So he's like, the need for speed, mom, the need for speed. And he goes whooshing down.
Oh,
I was like, oh boy.
he's going to be good.
Hey, Valerie, can you hear us?
I can hear you, and I don't know why my camera is not launching. Maybe I'll go out and come back in.
No worries. I mean,
Yeah,
either
give it a
or,
try.
however I mean, we can hear you. So you're the first one here. If we have no idea if this is even going to turn into something where a lot of people attend, this is our first one.
Oh, there it goes. There it goes.
Yay!
Yay!
So you get to be our first person. Welcome.
Thank you.
I just got a text message from my daughter, ladies. I need to go on my AirPods.
Okay.
Oh, you're being too loud, Mom.
Yeah.
It's probably me. I'm the loud one. I'm very loud. When I get excited, I get really loud.
Same here. Yeah, that's why I have this. That way I'm just yelling to myself instead of.
So Valerie, you remind me, you are on the East Coast.
I am in beautiful New Jersey.
Okay. How's New Jersey today?
Oh, wow.
It looks like it's finally turning to fallish. It's been sort of unseasonably warm, and it's a little rainy and gray, which is typical for this time of year, more typical.
Well, it's better than our snow here in Minnesota.
Yeah, I watched the weather maps. Denver, whatever, Midwest. Like, no.
Well, so I think you know me through attending some of the sanctuary events.
I think so.
And do you know Jamie or McKaela?
No, I don't.
Well, they're also my friends who happen to be in the space of marketing and recruiting as well. And they're very masterful networkers here in the Twin Cities. And so we just, on a whim, decided let's help more people. So
Awesome.
So how can we help you?
So interestingly enough, I interviewed with Target in the Twin Cities. And I was surprised a little bit, given what's happening with COVID and everything else that's going on, that Target and other companies are still looking for people to relocate. And so that's a question that I have is, what are you guys seeing in terms of virtual, remote teams, relocation? What's going on?
Great question. Yeah, great question. I can talk from a lens quickly, just from differentiator, because I don't think I'm seeing a one size fits all. And I'm really curious, actually, McKaela and Laura, what you're seeing. So my firm focuses on contract and contract to hire more. We actually have a strategic partnership in fall with Core Talent for the exec perm search. But what's interesting on the contract side with the big companies, 3M and Target, for example, is they are interested in relocation because their long-term plan doesn't necessarily mean everyone's going to be remote long-term.
Yep.
But with the smaller and mid-cap, I think they're much more open to remote. And reloc is not part of the package today.
Right.
How about you guys?
I would totally agree with that. I actually have been a little bit surprised at even our small and mid-sized clients. I would say especially, I thought this is an opportunity for these small and mid-sized companies to tap into amazing talent across the nation and not just have to geographically limit it to the Twin Cities. And our clients are like, no, we want people in the Twin Cities because we want them to be able to go into the office. Totally get that side of it and that thinking. And I agree with you, Jamie. The long-term plan is to keep the office space, to have the team go into the office eventually, even if it's just a few days a week and not all the time. But still important is what I'm hearing, that if people want you to be in the same geographic area so that eventually you can be back in the office.
Yeah. So I've been remote for 7 years.
Okay.
When I worked at TIA in New York City, and I had to hire a team, there was no space in their offices. So my team had to be remote, and I hired everyone on the team remotely. And some of them I never met in person, face to face. We didn't do Zoom at that time until we had our first team meeting. So, I'm so used to managing remote teams that it's sort of, I can't get my head around like not being able to do it. So when all the COVID thing happened, I was like, this is a piece of cake, right? My life really hasn't changed much.
Right.
So it's interesting to me, and it's interesting that I think in the marketing world there's a belief maybe that people are more collaborative when they're in the same space. But again, I'll go back to TIA. We had this big building in New York, and we had one in Charlotte, and oftentimes you'd go into those buildings and either no one would be there, or they wouldn't be mingling around the water cooler collaborating. They'd be off in their cubies doing their own little independent thing. So it's interesting to me. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
With the role you were looking at with Target, was it specifically because it was with the Target Corp, or are you entertaining relocating Twin Cities?
So I lived in Minnesota for 6 years.
Okay, got it.
The year I left was one of your record cold years.
You mean you don't love the cold, especially right now on October 26th when it's 25 degrees out?
And it'll stay that way until May. Yeah. So what I loved about the cold in Minneapolis was I never owned a pair of boots. I wore sneakers because it was so dry, and your feet didn't get all wet and mushy. And I walked everywhere, and it didn't bother me. And you wore layers and layers and layers of clothes. But when it got down to about like 20 or 30 below zero, that's when I said, I'm sure missing the East Coast ocean, warm weather.
Yeah. So you're not looking to come back to Minnesota, is what you're saying?
It also took me about 5 years to find this house that I'm in, which is my dream house. And I don't want to spend another 5 years looking for another dream house.
Understood.
Well, and I would think that there, the ones we're not talking about a lot of them right now, but there are indeed big companies like REI and Google and that are foregoing their office space, or at least greatly diminishing it, and are going to be, capitalizing on the idea of being able to hire across the nation, regardless of where people are, in order to get the best talent. So I would think that you will, if you haven't already, be coming across those opportunities as well, because there's definitely that other side of the coin.
Yeah, I think that's, that was always a big point for us, was being able to source the very best talent available, regardless. And, geographic cost savings. So I can get a marketer in Utah much less expensively than I can get a marketer in New York City. So I think companies need to think about this again a little bit, maybe.
And I think you should take that as a sign too. If an organization is not in tune with that, really think through, is that an organization that you want to be a part of?
Well,
and as much as you feel like you're in a position where like you need and want a job, what I always recommend is for you to get very clear on what are your negotiables and non-negotiables before you're even in a discussion with a company. Because if a company, if you're looking at, let's pretend like you have 3 different opportunities in front of you, and then you kind of stack rank the opportunities compared to what's on your non-negotiable list.
Yeah.
What we see happen a lot of times are people talking themselves into jobs when they know in their bones it's not right. And I'm sure we all have an experience, myself included. I'm like, I knew that wasn't going to work out.
Yeah. Yeah. I rely a lot on my instincts about the work. Definitely. But let me ask another question, because here's the other thing that I'm finding interesting in this job search. A lot of, particularly at the HR screening level, a lot of companies are trying to get very quickly to some of the, maybe some of your non-negotiables, but money, in the sometimes questions about remote work, but other things that in past job searches have come later in the conversation, right? They always teach you, get them to love you first and then get into those kind of details. But boy, they're quickly getting into those details, I find.
I'll comment on that first, because I've been thinking about this and asking other recruiters how they're handling this as well. I think it's 100% an efficiency play, so that hiring managers can speak with more and more candidates by talking about all the logistical stuff. Where do you live? What do you need to make? Location, those things, can you manage a team or not? Kind of like logistical things before getting into the, okay, now do we like each other or not? Because if those things don't line up, a lot of those things are showstoppers.
Yeah.
And if those things don't line up, you're saving everybody time by getting them out of the way in the front. So I always say that if the person that's running the interview, the HR person, the hiring manager, if that's what they lead with, try to be comfortable with it, or try to roll with it and have answers to those questions ready, because it could save you time too.
Yeah. Yeah. I had somebody recently after maybe 15 or 20 minutes of her telling me about, I think, what she thought the job was, ask me what was the minimum amount that I would work for.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That's not a very good way to ask that question.
No.
Not at all.
It's,
Valerie, what type of role are you looking for right now?
So I would say the best definition is creative operations.
Okay.
And with a bit of a qualifier. So I see a lot of creative operations roles posted. Many of them quickly get into the tactical piece of it. So a systems approach, right? How to use Workfront or, other tools that are often used in operations. Okay. And I think my skills are more focused on the people piece of it. So I came out of account services and account management. And what I see today is that there is a big focus on the tools and the process to get the work done. And there are skill gaps in the soft skills, the EQ piece, right? Where people dealing with people, especially marketers, especially in-house creative teams, where they're dealing with people that are colleagues who are marketers. And I often see a lot of friction between the creative teams and the marketing teams, because they don't always have the right skills on the creative team in-house to serve their marketing counterparts. So it's a lot of people stuff, right? How do we get us working together more efficiently?
Okay.
Kind of a long answer.
Yeah, I'm thinking of, so is that more applicable to larger organizations that generally come with a marketing team, a creative team, maybe using an ad agency, or are you thinking of kind of paring that down to a smaller team that needs those skill sets interactively?
I think yes, it probably does occur more in bigger organizations. I mean, that was the role at Target that I was talking to them about.
Okay.
It can also happen in smaller organizations. And over the past couple of years, there has been a big trend toward in-house teams. So as those teams have grown and staffed up and become more popular, I think that's where some of the growing pains are, right? So we hired all these people and we're not really sure that we even have the right structure. And things are not working quite as well as we would like them to. And some of it can be, they don't have the right systems, but most times I find it's people skills, people training that they need.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Interesting. How have you seen, or how have you experienced the job seeking process? If I feel like we've talked a lot about digital challenges. I mean, you've been remote for 7 years and feeling like this might be a real strength for you. Are you encountering anything that we're not talking about as far as challenges in this space or these crazy times?
Crazy times. So the conventional wisdom is that your best opportunities come through your network. And I've seen sort of two extremes.
Okay.
I have met some amazing networkers, some folks that just, they know how to connect you to the right people, and it's a very mutually beneficial relationship. And that's what we're all looking for, right? Is you help me, I help you. It's all good. We find some new contacts, we grow. It's great. The other interesting thing about this job search is that if you're familiar with on LinkedIn, the LinkedIn Easy Apply, right? It's just, you just hit the button, you put your phone number and you're done. I've actually gotten calls off of some of those. And I'm like, what's up with this, right? Like to me, it can't be any colder, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a contact there. I have no other, I'm like, well, this sounds interesting. Let me just hit, because it's painless from my point of view, right? I just hit the button and away we go. So that's been interesting to me. So it feels very, it's sort of very, very warm handoff, or it's complete cold.
Well, that just makes what you put on your LinkedIn profile that much more important in how you introduce yourself. Because what I teach is I tell people is I spend like 15 seconds checking your LinkedIn profile out before I even open your resume.
Yeah.
Because LinkedIn to me is more genuine and you can't lie. Right? It's typically a
little more
public
held
profile.
accountable. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Believe it or not, people do lie on LinkedIn. I will say that I have seen people that have worked for me with some pretty interesting job histories, including when they worked for me.
Funny.
But that's okay. But this is a good question, because I just had a meeting this morning with a career coach, and we talked about resumes, and she said, I think your resume is a little too long and it's too wordy. And I'm like, yeah, it probably is, right? So, what are people doing today in terms of like recruiting people doing in terms of looking at profile versus resume, and which ways have, you just said you thought LinkedIn was more honest, but where should we as job seekers be putting our efforts?
Default to you too, recruiters.
McKaela, you go first and then I'll go second.
Okay, I say LinkedIn. I think if you have, let's say you have 1 hour to spruce something up before you apply to your job, I would put 50 minutes into LinkedIn and making sure that your profile is optimized, that it says what you want people to know about you, that it shows your personality. You know, maybe it's just through your picture, that you've got good, well, if you have posted content, you know, that maybe it relates to what you do for work, or I just think that you can show so much more about yourself through LinkedIn. And I do think that more and more it's the first place that people are going to look at people before going to the resume. So resume very close second, absolutely, and that's got to be in tip-top shape. But if given the choice, I'd say LinkedIn.
So Valerie, I'm on your LinkedIn profile right now. And so I'll just tell you kind of some things that just jump out at me right away, if that's okay with you.
Oh, yeah, good.
So to me, I mean, I understand creative operations, but I think for someone who's a recruiter inside some of these big companies, they need a story to really like understand it.
Okay.
Because saying creative operations is like, it doesn't paint a very vivid picture about what you do and how you do it. And then I get a little confused because I go down and I see that you were the director of operations. So I'm like, so now I'm like bucketing you in this like ops pool.
Got it.
So immediately, like, and I'm not saying I'm everyone. I'm just saying that that's what and then I look, the next thing I look for is metrics. So how have you helped a company improve a process? How many people have you managed? I look for numbers or metrics, or like, it's easier for some people to put a number on how you've helped a company make money, how you've helped a company save money. Like those things really jump out.
Okay. So a lot of those stats are in my resume. And so here's another great question, because again, sort of local wisdom early on, and maybe it's changed, was don't give away the whole show on your LinkedIn profile, right? Your LinkedIn profile should sort of be like a level above, and then the resume gets into more of the detail of what you do. But if you're saying, I'm going to go to LinkedIn first, and if there aren't those little sort of nuggets there, you might never get to my resume.
Mm-hmm.
So I go to LinkedIn to do proactive searches for talent. So I type in keywords and locations or whatever the criteria that I'm looking for. And then LinkedIn spits out 300 people, and I refine that further down to like 50 people. And I then would reach out to each one of those people that I think might be a good fit for my job.
Gotcha.
So I err on the side of more keywords that you think people might be searching for you should be in LinkedIn. So think if you're a recruiter for Target and you're looking for a creative operations person, what keywords do you want to show up for?
Well, and let me jump in here because I want to make sure we're doing due diligence, because you're talking to proactive recruiters. So clients are working with Laura and McKaela and Marcom often to help them find the right fit. Then there's the whole flip side, Valerie, of you applying to jobs that are on job boards and how those incoming jobs are filtered and received at large companies. And a lot of them work with ATS systems or applicant tracking systems. And in order for them to even show up in as a filter at all, those keywords that Laura's referencing, that's what that software is seeking. So I would err on, yes, absolutely. There are people from a networking standpoint, from a proactive recruiter standpoint, there's no reason your LinkedIn and your resume can't be both stellar. True. Right? I mean, think of the audience that you're trying to capture. In the example of the ATS or the big companies, they would probably validate and go to your LinkedIn to ensure that it aligns, or see who you're connected to. Are you even interested in this company? So are you following them? Have you ever interacted? There's a lot of things that you can read or validate as a candidate on LinkedIn as well. So yes, I mean, as far as how people are searching or looking for folks, I think of your LinkedIn, to McKaela's point too, is telling your story. So, you know, how do you do your job? What gets you out of bed every day? What are some of those amazing stories that you get to share about when you were at XYZ company, and really kind of highlighting who you're connected to at the end of the day. But your resume, if you're trying and you have those cold, or you don't have those warm contacts, I should say, you know, those keywords on your resume, metrics, all of those things that job description is looking for is highly valuable because they're human filtering, or it's going through an ATS and then another human is looking for them. So it can be really challenging if you don't have the right information on your resume. It's also super time consuming to be able to do that for each and every job. So to Laura's earlier point, you know, what is it that you're really looking for? Where are you going to spend your best time for the best job that fits your goals? And there's something to that pointing out, and it's such a bummer that you're not in the Twin Cities for it. We've actually launched an app that is going to eventually eliminate the resume. So when we're talking about all of this effort and how people are searching for jobs, the qualifier piece in the job board is still missing. And that's what we're hoping to address with our tool. And hopefully one day you'll hear about it outside the Twin Cities. It's Hoodoo. So I'll follow up with you if you're interested in it. But the idea of it is to build your profile. So to answer the questions that Laura and McKaela are asking you, what is it that you're looking for? What is it that you're qualified for? And then all of the subjective and all the objective skill sets apply. The only jobs you see are ones you're fully qualified for. Flip that to the hiring manager. So it's a lot of interesting things, but in conversation that we're having, the idea of the resume being eliminated is not too far-fetched. So I think LinkedIn one day really is going to be on the forefront of how everybody is showing up.
Interesting. Yeah, I have to say, as a searcher, we know about the ATS systems and we're not fans.
Nobody is. I don't think hiring managers are.
Because I think, you know, at least I've heard rumored that just as a system, sometimes you can get screened out just for like an extra space somewhere or something, right? So it's a little bit arbitrary. It makes it hard, and that's why I do try to find someone in my network who can like take a resume or have a conversation or whatever I need to do. So it sounds like I probably need to take a look at LinkedIn and, you know, maybe beef that up a little bit in terms of some of the keywords, some of the stats, particularly, you know, as applies to the role specifically that I'm looking for, because there's a lot of history in there too, right? So I don't want to erase my history. That's important, but it may not be exactly the job. Like I'm not looking for another account manager job, right? So I don't want to get rid of that because I think it's good for people to know, but I don't want to necessarily highlight that piece.
Right. Well, transferable skills are so valuable, right? I mean, if you're not looking for an account management job today, you learned a lot in that role that's going to apply for what it is you're looking for. So, you know, highlighting those 2 or 3 things that you really want to show off in that account management role. But telling the story of what within creative operations, to Laura's point, it's like, tell me a little bit more about what that means. What is the role you play in that space?
So as recruiters, do you read that about section? Because I find that's the most sort of storytelling piece.
Yes. You gotta hook me in. I have sometimes a short attention span. So it's about how do you like pretend like there's 100 other people that do exactly what you do. You do it. I know, Valerie, you do it in a very unique way. Yeah. So that's your opportunity to share like what makes you different than everyone else who's in creative operations.
Yeah.
Well, and fun fact, that's where your keywords are going to show up.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, good. I I believe in test and learn. So I change it all the time. And I changed the background picture because I actually had a comment in an interview about, I'm kind of a low key person. I'm more sort of thoughtful and whatever. And so I got a comment back about energy level. And I'm like, so let me try a more energetic picture on my profile and see if that changes something. So I just play with it. I think it's interesting.
Absolutely.
Well, and talking about keywords, keywords are going to come into play more probably on the proactive recruiter side. Although it is important, I think, when you're applying to roles as well, because when you're applying on LinkedIn, and anyone, whether, let's say a hiring manager or an HR person is looking at all those applications, they can narrow that list down by saying, okay, out of my 200 applicants, I want to see the applicants that have A, B, and C. So keywords on your profile are relevant for applying to roles as well. So that's my first point. But secondly, when we're talking about keywords, I mean, those keywords could be anywhere on your profile. So the ones that you want people to notice or that you want to come to the top of those filters, if you will, they could be in your about section, but they could also, and your experience, but they could also be down in your skills and endorsements. So you want to make sure that that's up to snuff and that those keywords that go along with the jobs that you're interested in are represented in your skills and endorsements as well. So I guess my point there is that it's not just in the experience section, it's the other sections too. Like for example, I'm looking for, last week I was looking for a digital marketing manager, and they had to have like UX and SEO and email marketing. And the profiles that have those words over and over and over again go to the very top of my search.
So Valerie, just because I'm feeling really generous, we actually just finished a 3-part LinkedIn series through the marketers community. I'm going to send you the recording from the very first session.
Okay.
And that's all, I mean, that's going to answer so many questions that you have, because the gal who co-taught it with me, she works directly with LinkedIn. And she trains, she works for a company that's about a $300 million company here in the Twin Cities, and trains her sales team, trains the recruiting team, trains everyone. And so I think everything that we're saying right now will go into even more depth. It's about an hour recording. And I'll send that to you today.
Great. I'm in.
All right. Well, do you want to too,
Thank
Jamie?
You. Yeah, heck yeah,
okay.
I do.
Yeah, I'll send
feeling
you.
Generous.
Yeah.
I'm going to take you up on it.
Yes. That's what we do, right? That's what we do. So I guess in the interest of like anything else, Valerie, otherwise we got to continue on with our days. I've got to make some lunch over here.
Still life.
And eat before my next meeting.
Great. This has been like, 3-on-1 coaching. Awesome. Love it so much. I am definitely going to go back into my LinkedIn and take a look at it today. I have another assignment from my coaching this morning about creating a portfolio, which is a really interesting assignment for me. I'm also going to find a place to post that. I also heard that I should post things in the projects section. So I'm taking some training right now on Salesforce, and somebody said, yeah, just put that in your project section that you're actually taking that training, and it's good for badges or points or whatever it's good for.
Sounds
Love
like
it.
great
Agreed.
Yeah.
I'm working away at it every day.
Thank you for tuning in. I love how this worked out for it to just be able to be a Valerie session. It's going to go down in history as our first off kickoff with Valerie.
I love it.
I'll join every session, guys. I love it.
All right. Well, it's good to see everyone. We'll be back in 2 weeks.
Sounds
Have
good.
a great rest of your week, guys. Happy Monday.
You
Bye.
too. Bye-bye.
Okay. See ya.